Hey everybody, welcome to the Movement is Medicine podcast, episode number 4. I'm your host, Kevin Carr, and this week was a really great episode. We responded to 2 questions from listeners out there. Number 1 being the most common question that Brendon and I get on a weekly basis, and that question is, should I go to massage school? We get this question all the time from aspiring trainers who are thinking about adding manual therapy to their skill set. And so Brendon and I kind of thought back to our experience applying, going through massage school, and then going about setting up our massage business. As most of you know, listening might know, Brendon and I are both licensed massage therapists. We went to Cortiva Institute and then went on to set up Movement is Medicine. So we thought back to our experiences going through massage school and maybe some things we would do differently or some things that we thought worked really well, and kind of gave our advice to this listener. So if you're thinking about going to massage school, this would be a great episode for you to listen to. Additionally, we answered a second question from a listener who asked about different movement appraisals and assessments, and then what they should use and how we could use the results from a movement assessment to set up a more effective program. And so we kind of gave our overall thoughts on different commercial movement appraisal systems, how you can build your own system, and then most importantly, how do you tie what you're doing in an assessment with a client to building an effective program. So we thought this was a pretty good episode. It was about an hour long. Thanks for listening, and I think you're going to enjoy it. Welcome to episode 4 of the Movement is Medicine podcast. My name is Kevin Carr, and with my amazing co-host, Brendon Rearick here, just enjoying his coffee at about 5 a.m. on the West Coast. And it's a little bit easier for me. It's about 8 in the morning. How you doing, Brendon? How's your weekend going so far?
I'm doing well. I got up a little early so I can beat the rush.
Get the podcast in early.
Get the podcast in early. I can't believe we're on number 4 here. But yeah, it's Rain's birthday weekend, so therefore I need to get all my stuff out of the way before she wakes up.
Super dad. Mm-hmm. Well, what's on the agenda for the birthday?
Well, so today is the trampoline park. So fingers crossed, no torn Achilles. And then McDonald's lunch. That was a request because we never have it. And then Sunday is going to be a yes day. So have you heard of what a yes day is? Yeah. So it's a movie.
No,
we watched the movie last week. I think it's Jennifer Garner, isn't it? And your parents say no to everything. No this, no, 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 no. And the kids say, Mom and Dad, you always say no to everything. Why don't you ever say yes? And so they agree to have a yes day where they can't say no to anything. And there's a couple caveats, a couple rules. So you can't get on a plane, or you can't go further than 20 miles from the house. It can't be over $100, and you can't ask for anything in the future. So you can't say like, buy me a car.
It's got to be today.
It's got to be today. So now Rain is obsessed with this idea of a yes day. And so we agreed that...
You're going to have quite a day.
Yes. So we agreed that if it's your birthday, you get a yes day. So that means I get a yes day in August. Jenny gets her yes day in July, and Rain gets her yes day. Well, her birthday is Valentine's Day, but because we're celebrating on Sunday. So my first question, of course, was, so do you want to watch the Super Bowl, Rain? And she said, no. So I'm going to turn off my phone and record the Super Bowl. And the second she goes to bed, I'm going to watch it. And I got my fingers crossed that nobody's going to ruin it for me. But if anyone wants to
stay off our text chain.
Yeah, if anyone wants to watch it's a very good movie. It's pretty funny. And of course, they make the dad.
It's called Yes Day?
It's called Yes Day. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Nice. And we'll make sure to check in with you next week about how your body feels after a day at the trampoline park today.
And a yes day. It should be interesting.
Oh, my God.
But yeah, that's
great. That's awesome. I don't have anything that exciting on the schedule this weekend. So I'll be looking forward to hearing how it goes for you.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure I'll have some videos and good stuff to share. What's on the agenda today here?
I'm going to record this with you. We're kind of on a tight time schedule because I got to shoot over to the gym
right
when we get done. And I'm going to see one client. Lots of times when I'm here on the weekend, I'll just kind of see 1 or 2 kind of overflow clients on a Saturday, really as a tool to get me to go to the gym to work out on Saturday. It just gets me to go
Get up and
get
move.
in something there. And it's good. There's always a good group there Saturday morning. There's good energy there Saturday morning. So I'm going to go do that. And then I'm going to do a bunch of stuff around my house. I'm going to putter around the house.
How our lives have changed since our 20s.
Exactly. And, and then the Super Bowl tomorrow. That's really it. My biggest thing I need to figure out is what I'm going to prepare.
You should give,
and it's really just Ariel and I.
I was going to say, you should give Ariel a yes day.
She would love a yes day. The problem is she says yes to work every day, so that's what she's doing right now. So
maybe she needs a no day.
Right into it.
She needs a no day. Say no.
Yeah, exactly.
Say no to work. Say no to Kevin. Say no to everything. Just lay on the couch.
Yeah.
Say yes to the couch.
Yeah, well, hey, every day that she gets more pregnant here, there's going to hopefully be more no days for her, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure. She deserves them.
So why don't we get right into it here? As usual, we kind of just go off a lot of the questions that come in over the course of the week. Mm-hmm. And the most common question I know you and I get all the time, ever since we both went to massage school and incorporated massage therapy as a tool in our toolbox and open movement as medicine as our business is, from trainers specifically, is should I go to massage school? And in doing so, how do I incorporate that into what I do and build a business model? Or how do I incorporate that as a service in addition to what I do as a trainer? And when I say that we get this question like every week or every month, we get it all the time because it's become very popular over the last few years for trainers to develop or go to school for manual therapy skills and kind of incorporate that rehab-based practice into what they do. And I think it can be a confusing space for people because you don't want to try to be a bad physical therapist. You want to be a good manual massage therapist and a really good coach. And you don't want to start to cross your practice act into being something you're not in working with people who need to be seeing a medical professional. But as you and I can both attest, and other people we know, like Marco as well, who has done this, and Damien, who has done this, and all the other coaches that we've worked with, it can be a really good tool, and there's a place on the continuum for that professional. And so hopefully maybe we can shed some light on things that we wish we knew before we went to massage school. That was a question that I got specifically. And then how to incorporate that into your business and your professional practice.
What I like, but also dislike about these podcasts is I don't know any of these questions before we start. So I'm going to kind of talk through this. And so number one,
I can get you going if you want.
Yeah, but so the first thing that comes to mind is when everyone asks me what I do, I'm a strength coach first. Everything strength and conditioning coach is number one. Fitness is number one. That's where I start, and I have massage skills as a tool in my toolbox. And like you mentioned, we know just enough to be dangerous, but we know just enough to know when to punt that ball to somebody else or to bring somebody else in. That's my first thought is we are strength coaches first, and we added it as a supplement. So if you're not, I'm going to say, a strength coach or a trainer yet first, that's the route I would go, knowing what I know now.
And it kind of brings me to a good point, and I want to kind of back it up before we get into the daily practice, because I definitely have some thoughts on that. But one thing I always say to people, and the person who asks me this question is almost always someone who has been working as a trainer for a while, right? They typically have experience in coaching. Most of the time it's someone who I would look at and say, yeah, they have a pretty good training business. They're busy. They've been doing this for a while. And they seem to either be kind of stagnant, or they hit an earnings ceiling, or they're seeing people in their practice, in their training practice, who need manual therapy skills, right? That's what happened with us. We were working a lot in MBSC, and obviously we had a great physical therapist there in John Paloff, but we saw people who were kind of dealing with chronic kind of stiffness or discomfort, and we're seeking manual therapy skills, and we didn't really have someone on staff to be able to provide more focused massage work. And when they ask the question, should I go to massage school? The first thing I say to them is make sure that you are going to actually start a business, because it costs a significant amount of money to go to any manual therapy program, probably in the range of $15,000 per year. I just looked at a curriculum yesterday. It was 17 grand.
And don't forget you give up, right? So
yeah, you're giving up income as well.
You give up income. So it's not just what it costs to go. It's the opportunity cost that you give up. So we gave up a lot of clients, we gave up a lot of hours, and we gave up a lot of weekends. So
yeah, and so if you're going to make that sacrifice, don't do it and then just go back to what you were doing and then work on your clients at the start of the session for two reasons. One, you're never going to monetize it to make it valuable enough of an investment. And two, you're never going to get good enough at manual therapy if you're just kind of doing it on the side. Like, you don't really get great at massage or manual therapy in massage school, right? It's like getting a gen ed. They always say, hey, what massage school should I go to? I say, I don't know, which one's convenient for you and which one can you afford? Because in reality, you take a bunch of short semesters of a bunch of different skills and you get comfortable putting your hands on people and figuring out some anatomy from a physical touch standpoint. But you don't really develop your skills until you really practice with a lot of people. And if you're only doing a little massage on the side, like at the start of the session, you're like, I'm going to work on your hip or work on your shoulder, you're never going to develop the skills to really be good. You're just going to be kind of a crappy manual therapist and a good trainer. Whereas you and I intently started a business immediately. And we started seeing clients regularly every single day, in addition to training people in the gym. So we could develop the skills and we could develop a second income stream. And so it was a good investment for us because we capitalized on that. We developed our skills and we made money off of it. But I always say, make sure you have a plan, at least in your head, as to what you're going to do next once you get your licensure and how you're going to apply it into practice. Start to build your philosophy and your practice model like you and I did, right? Like we were already taking classes and continuing education in manual therapy before we were even done with school. Mm-hmm. So make sure you have that mindset going into it.
Yeah, we had a very specific, focused plan and idea of what we wanted to do with it. And I do want to say a little disclaimer. We are not physical therapists. We are not chiropractors. We are not medical professionals. And when I think about it, movement as medicine might give people the wrong idea, because movement is medicine. But when they hear the word medicine, they think medical or doctor. We didn't do it to bypass physical therapy. We don't think we're better than physical therapists. We did it again as a supplement to our strength and conditioning program. Now, also we added skills, we added tools to our toolbox, so we made ourselves more valuable. But at any time that, if it's acute or post-surgical, we send that to, you mentioned John Paloff at MBSC. We kick that ball to somebody else, to somebody we trust all the time. So I do want to say that right from the get-go, is that you're not doing this to replace any medical professional.
I mean, I sent someone to him this week who's like a regular training client, someone I see very frequently, mm-hmm. who's been dealing with some stuff. And I said, hey, he would ask me to check it out. I looked at it. And again, you have to know what are the signs and signals to punt. Okay, acute pain after an acute injury, like, hey, I fell and hurt my knee. Probably not someone I should be seeing. Mm-hmm. Radiculopathy, pain, weakness, burning, numbness down the leg. Really big red flags like night pain, rapid weight loss, things like that. You're not going to massage your way out of. And so whenever you have any question of should I, that's when you send to a medical professional, because you can always see that person later if it's indicated for soft tissue work. And so having a collaborative relationship with, we work with a lot of different physical therapists in the area, not even just John. I've sent people to Boston Sports Physical Therapy. I've sent people to Fitzgerald Physical Therapy, depending on what the person can afford economically. Like John is a cash-based service, where these other places are insurance-based. Maybe what they specialize in, people with sensitization and chronic pain, or people dealing with ACL rehab or shoulder rehab,
vestibular system
places.
There's
it might be more indicated, right?
Who do specific work.
So you have a big responsibility, because the consumer doesn't always know where they should go, right? They end up with you because their friend had a good experience when they had just like some chronic hip or back pain. Then that person walks in and they have numbness and weakness down their leg and incontinence, and you're like, I'm going to make sure you go to a doctor if you have it first, and then I think you should seek a physical therapy script. And being okay and understanding where your lane is probably the most important thing for you and the client as a professional. So yeah, clearly define your lanes and clearly have standards for who you are going to work with, and have a network to refer to is paramount.
Now, the other thing we did was we almost pigeonholed ourselves, but for good reason. We only do what I call sports massage. When somebody asks what we do, or movement therapy, right? We're a movement therapist. So we watch how you move. We work on you in shorts and a t-shirt. We don't really do like under the table spa, nice, start the incense, put on the coffee house music and relax type massage. It's very specific.
I have classic rock radio playing in the background at the clinic all the time.
It's very specific. There's a purpose, and we test movement. And the whole goal is to get you back to fitness or get you back in the gym. Like, we're probably terrible. If someone came in and saw what we did and how we book people and how many we have them buy, they'd be like, this is a terrible business model, because we basically sell a few at a time or one at a time and then try to let the dove fly away. Because the goal is to get you is to get you back to something, or return to play, whatever play is for you in that context. So yeah, we're terrible business people, but for some reason we stay really, really busy because people appreciate the fact that we're not going to BS them or sell them a package of 12 and tell them they need to use it in 2 weeks. And so we've been pretty successful from that front, that we did pigeonhole ourselves and say we only do. I love to bring up the example of the gentleman who called you once and said he had really bad knee pain, and he's like, I just want you to rub my legs. And you're like, are you going to work out? Do you exercise? Like, your doctor told you need to lose a little bit of weight so you don't have so much knee pain. And the guy was like, nah, I'm not going to exercise. Like, I just want you to rub I just want you to rub my knees. And you're like, my legs. And you're like, there's like places you can go in town that are half the cost of us, and they'll rub your legs for a whole hour. Like, I don't think I'm the right person for this job.
So I'll tell that story.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I stole your thunder there.
It's great. You gave me a good introduction. So he was referred in by a client that comes to the gym, trains with us, sometimes gets manual therapy with me. And he was referred in, and he had like a long-lasting kind of non-specific knee pain. He had some imaging done, degenerative changes, right? Pretty standard for a guy who's in his 50s. And again, you have to treat the client as a whole, not just my knee hurts. And so in the discussion with him, we talked about his lifestyle. What is his daily activity like? Not a lot, or really any. Sedentary job. He was a pretty large individual. And I mean, had clearly just walking in, had trouble from a mobility standpoint, right? Just like getting around. And so the conversation I had with him, obviously the manual therapy is a great tool to make someone feel better. Like I always say, you create a window of opportunity. So, I mean, working on him would be helpful, but the conversation I had in our first and really only session was like, I want every session that you come in to look a little bit less like massage and a little bit more like exercise, because ultimately I think if we get you moving and get you exercising, and you don't have to work out 2 days a week. I just want you to start with 1 day a week, and go for some walks and just try to move a little bit. I think you'll start to feel better. And that was and maybe it's on me for communication there. He put the brakes on. I was like, I'm not really interested in that at all. I was just hoping I could come in and have you, rub my knees a couple times a week, because he was going to like kind of a chiropractor guy before that, and going like 4 times a week for like 15 minutes. You know how you have those like classic kind of stack them and crack them guys. And I said, well, to be honest, I don't really feel comfortable having you come in here 3 or 4 times a week just for a massage. Although economically that might be great for me, I don't think it's what you need. And I think that, ideally a more kind of well-rounded plan where we talk about what are the best ways to start to get some behavior change would probably be best. And that wasn't a good fit, right? And that's okay. Not everyone's going to be a good fit. And like kind of going to what you said before, it's not to say I don't have regular massage clients. It's just a huge minority of the people that I see. I actually have 2 people who come in regularly just for massage. One is like an older woman who just wants an hour a week.
Yeah. No,
it's funny. Her daughter actually sent her to me.
You'll have your maintenance.
Thought she was coming for exercise. Her daughter is actually a training client of mine.
Oh, okay.
And she referred her to me. And it's funny. She told her daughter, "Hey, I'm going to see Kevin every week." And for months, her daughter thought she was exercising. And she was like, no, I just get massage, an hour of massage. But for her, like, it's not to say general massage isn't valuable. It has its own value, right? Like it helps her relax. She plays tennis. She's very active. It makes her feel better. But she was like, I don't really want to lift weights. I'm like, that's fine. She didn't have like an acute issue she wanted to fix. She didn't have like a nagging chronic thing she was trying to get addressed. She just, probably likes talking to me for the hour. We literally talk the whole hour. And I work on her shoulders. I work on her back. I work on her hips. I work on her feet, because she's an active 70-something-year-old woman and she feels better. So it's not that I don't see those people, but we definitely don't set an environment, like you said, that is very spa-like.
No.
And so, we kind of create the environment for the clients that we tend to want to see and like to see, right? Like the gym athlete-based or recreational athlete who is probably already working out in the gym with some of our coaches, and we kind of develop a collaborative relationship with them to keep them doing the things that they want.
So maintenance clients, so that I would consider that a maintenance client. Like they come in once, twice a month, sometimes once a week, like just to keep things moving. I mean, like you said, it's a great benefit. It's a luxury. It's a luxury item. Most of the time who we see are people who, the injury or stiffness or pain is usually what drives you to go do something like this. Not a lot of people are coming in for preventative measures, though we wish more would. A lot of people who are coming in that we are seeing are coming in for a specific purpose or reason. When I lift my arm, it hurts right here. When I do too many squats, my knees start to hurt. So I do want to just mention that maintenance clients are great, but generally what you're going to see in a model like ours. Now, again, if you are open to working with everybody and everything, and you don't want to pigeonhole yourself, like that's totally fine. But that to me, now you're a massage therapist. Again, we are strength coaches first. So that's why I brought this up in the beginning, is we are strength coaches first with massage as an option to then go do something else. Also, strength and conditioning allows us to hear people tell us their movements, or like when for example, when I squat, I feel it on this side of my knee, and then we watch you squat, and then, okay, so I mentally know that, okay, that could be glute medius, it could be a hamstring issue, it could be quad. Maybe we try a few more screens or tests, and we go from there, and then I put you on the table, we do massage, and then you get back up and squat again. And did it improve? Yes or no? And then if it did, we continued down that path, and we know that's something we can do. And if it did not, then we're barking up the wrong tree. So that's generally who we're seeing as strength coaches. Maintenance is great, but those aren't going to be the majority of your people. And again, that's why I said in the beginning we're strength coaches first. And the other thing is massage is incredibly draining compared to strength and conditioning. I could do 10 sessions of training. I can do maximum 4 sessions of massage before I am absolutely wiped. And I don't even, I would rather keep it to 2 or 3 massage sessions and 6 or 7 strength training sessions. But economically, I can train all day, and you can train more people at once. I can train a group of 5. I can't massage a group of 5. So there are specific limitations, or there are very glaring limitations to being a massage therapist. One, it's just you. It's one-on-one. 2, it's physically and emotionally draining for both you and the individual. Because when you put your hands on somebody, there is, I don't know what to call it, it's just there, or there's this energy transfer that you get from this individual, from you to them.
Yeah, and you're just plain and simple, you're physically working for the whole hour. Like,
yeah, like it's
like training, you can pick up the weights for them maybe,
yeah,
and you show them some demos, but it's a lot of time standing there watching them.
Yeah.
Right. There's none of that in manual therapy if you're doing it. And even if like I said, the majority of our sessions are, hey, we work for like 15, 20 minutes maybe on some manual therapy at the most, and then we're out there exercising. But that there's a cost to that physically.
And then
to you.
Finally, massage doesn't travel well. Like I could train someone in a park. I can train someone in their house. I can train someone, but you have to have a table. You have to have massage oil. You have to have sheets. Also, there's a lot more liability that goes into massage due to the ethics of things that can happen that don't happen in training. So that's, again, see, this is what happens when I wake up at 4 a.m. to do this. My brain is not jogging yet until we get into this a little bit. But that's what I was trying to explain at the beginning, is why I always say I'm a strength coach first, because that I can always fall back on strength coaching or training, whereas massage, like, I have to be physically able to do it or want to do it. I also have to have a lot more available from a resource standpoint that I don't need to do training. So training will always be there, and I'll always be able to do 35 to 40 hours a week of that. But I mean, I applaud any massage therapist who can do 30 plus hours a week of manual work, because I wouldn't be able to do it. I think I could do 20 max if that was all I did all week.
Yeah. Well, and so you brought up a few points there that I want to touch on. One, all the things you talked about like the increased physical demand, emotional demand, and like that goes into being a manual therapist or massage therapist. Again, speaking to the business model, you have to create a separate business. You have to charge more for your services, right? If you come and see me at Michael Boyle Strength and Conditioning, it costs one thing, and the money runs through Michael Boyle Strength and Conditioning, and eventually my share comes back to me. Whereas if you come and see me at Movement is Medicine, that is a different cost. It's a different price. It's a different service. And so I charge more for that. And so you have to be comfortable. Like if you have clients who are existing clients who you're training, you have to bill them in a separate way, because for you, the cost benefit has to work out. If you're not making more money and you're doing something that's harder and more strenuous, you have to have more insurance, as you touched on as well. As a massage therapist, you have to have the table, you have to have a space that's dedicated to it, as we do.
The laundry and the oil is expensive.
It's my second biggest expense.
It's laundry.
My second biggest expense is laundry.
Yeah, exactly.
I keep Wynn Street Laundry and Woburn in business. They come like 4 times a week. But it's because I broke down the numbers. So like you have to, if you're going to do this, you have to really set up a separate business model for it. And so that was a discussion I had with this individual who asked the question. And then additionally, something you touched on at the very beginning where you talked about, looking at someone move and making decisions. You have to develop another skill set, not just in a manual therapy standpoint, but what is going to be your treatment and training approach? How are you going to take a movement appraisal? And this is going to segue into our next question. And how are you going to decide how to make decisions? You're not going to go to massage school and get any of those skills at all. When you go to massage school, like I said, it's like a bunch of gen eds. You're going to do a few weeks of sports massage, a few weeks of general massage, a few weeks of like we did hot stones.
Yeah.
I've never used those since. But you have to go through all those, and then you go and you do your clinical time. And so you're not going to get any movement appraisal or not going to have any ability to connect the dots to training. And that's why you and we've always made the policy of only hiring people who are already fitness professionals. I would rather take a strength coach and personal trainer and send them to massage school than to go the other way around, because they need to have an appreciation of movement and exercise to be able to have the decision-making matrix in their head. And so those skills are really, really important to develop in addition to just the skills with your hands.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, the price point needs to be higher. I just wanted to go back to that for a second because, so for example, when I do massages here at the house, it's nothing under 105 and there's no packages. It's 105 per session, no matter what. With training, because there's a larger commitment and you might do it 3 times a week or 2 times a week, I do packages for that, but I don't. So again, the price point has to be higher due to the skill that it takes, the energy that it takes, and your time has to be your time is valuable. So it's a benefit to be able to charge more, but it can also be a negative if it's taking away from something else or you don't value yourself enough. So yeah, I just wanted to make that point that you've got to value it more because it is a more specific skill than strength or personal training. That's not to say personal training as it doesn't require skill. It just doesn't require just a different kind of skill. And again, strength and conditioning, you can work with 2-3 people at a time and 6 or 7 sessions a day. Massages, you can't do that. So,
yeah. And so kind of in summary, and I want to use it to segue to the next kind of question we had was like, 1, understand why you're going, understand the business model that you want to have out of it. Most importantly, have a very clear understanding of who you should and should not be working with, and develop relationships with other health professionals who can support you and your clients. And understand how you can do it sustainably for a career and not just as a little side thing you do, because you'll never get good enough and you'll never make enough money if it's a side gig. And kind of to segue to the next thing, developing the skills to be able to take an appraisal of how someone moves, what they're dealing with, and then have decision making based on that. And so if you could kind of touch on, what was the other question that you got this week that we want to discuss?
So I got a question this week about the functional movement screen. And so you and I use the functional movement screen. We also use the SFMA, the Selective Functional Movement Assessment, which just breaks down the functional movement screen into a joint by joint approach. So just macro down to micro. And that's not to say these are the only 2 assessments you can use, but they're the ones we use. And as long as you have an assessment, that's what's important, or you have a way to screen movement or look at movement and then make a better decision after. So functional movement screen just allows us to make a better decision moving forward. And this individual was asking me, so if someone gets a 1, what should that person do? If that person gets a 2 out of 3, what should or shouldn't they do? And then if they get a 3 out of 3, which would mean that they are above average or perfect at that movement, whatever perfection is, what should and shouldn't they do? So,
and let's back it up just for 1 second. If there's people who are listening who really aren't familiar, FMS uses a 1 through 3 or 0 through 3 screening, right? So they have their standards that they use. And again, you don't have to agree with the standards at all. You can have your own movement appraisal. The most important part of a movement appraisal is that you look at how someone moves and make a decision based on where you want your entry point to training to be, right? But 3, based on their standards, means you hit all the standards. You can do that movement the way they want. 2 means that there might be some things that aren't what you're looking for, but they check most of the boxes.
And
right?
they're likely to not be injured.
Yeah.
Due to a movement problem.
And one being that they can't do it, and 0 being that it hurts, right? And so if we're going to base it off of that metric specifically, that would be their guideline. And so just I just want to provide some clarification if there's people listening who might not be familiar with it.
And it's really the stoplight approach. You mentioned this before we got on this call, the stoplight approach. So 3 is a green, 2 is a yellow, red is a 1 or a 0. And we talked about this as a massage therapist, knowing when to punt the ball or like what's not in your wheelhouse. Anything that's a 0 that is pain is most likely also going to require, now that doesn't mean you can't work on them, but if it's a 0, you should also be working with somebody else who is a professional that works with people who are in pain. So that's a medical professional. So again, this functional movement screen that we use, or any screen that you use, tells us, or it helps us with the triage part of this. So when do I punt the ball? When should I back off, right? Those are your red lights. Now, and those are going to, when you use your lowest regressions as a trainer. So that's your easiest exercises. Now, yellow being, okay, so as you mentioned, there's some movement inefficiencies here, but it's not enough to cause a red light or a big red flag yet, but I'm going to be aware of them. And so when I select the exercise moving forward, I'm going to probably start a little bit easier and then progress from there. If you get a green light, now we're really just worried about volume, intensity, weight. We're not worried. We've taken the movement stuff off the table.
You've taken the question of, can they do it?
Yes.
Can they do the movement?
Right.
Off.
And so now it's just loading and that decision-making process. So again, the assessment should allow you to make a better decision. And that's for fitness. And then we use the same thing for massage, because now I can say, okay, so when I watched you do that movement, I know that these are the muscles that would limit that movement from being done properly, either a yellow or a red. So those are the muscles that I'm going to go focus in on and try to work manually. And then we can retest and see if the pattern improved. And if it did improve, we want to add exercise to it, because exercise is the glue that's going to hold it all together. So I can't walk around all day long massaging your hamstring if that should be the problem. You're going to have to do something on your end. And it wouldn't be financially responsible of that individual to come in every single day to get that hamstring worked on. So that's where we bring our tools in. This is why the mobility WOD was so popular, was I'm going to give you some tools that you can work on your own. So I always tell everyone, these things right here, my hands, this is like using a sniper rifle. Okay, I can focus in, I can dig in, I know exactly where to go. When you use a softball or a band or a foam roller, you're using a bazooka. All right, so you're just getting all the things and hoping you're hitting the right spot. Okay, you pay for the sniper rifle, and then you can do the bazooka stuff on your own at home.
Well, and I want to kind of go back to the kind of movement screening in context because there's definitely always people who kind of detract from things like the FMS and say, it's a waste of time. The movement standards are arbitrary. And they kind of go back to the old thing that FMS has moved away from, which is good. That they used to say, oh, you can predict injury, which they don't say anymore. As many people, they learned that, injuries are a complex thing. You can't look at someone move and say that person's going to tear their ACL, or look at them move and say they're going to hurt their back. We know that there's a much more complex system than that. There's a lot of things that can factor that. And then they say those movement standards are arbitrary. In some context might be, but I think we can all say, no matter where you are on the spectrum of coaches and trainers, there's a certain way we want to see people move when they do an exercise, right? And there's huge variation for that, right? If you go into your gym or my gym and see a bunch of people goblet squatting, there's going to be little differences, right? There's good, better, and best, and there's standards for what we want, right? If someone's chest is a little low, or their knees are a little in, no one really cares, right? But when you look at them in a body weight squat when they first come in, like every good coach should say, well, let me just see you do a body weight squat or squat with a press out. And you can look at them and say, that person's ready to goblet squat, or that person's ready to front squat, or maybe they need an assistance, or maybe we need to work on their hip or ankle mobility, or give them a heel lift. There's a decision-making process that happens. And the reason things like FMS or SFMA have been helpful, especially for young coaches, is because it gives them a standardized way to look at things. And then once you understand that, you probably don't need the kit, right? You might not need the stick or the heel board to do it. You can kind of look and be like, that person might not be ready to back squat or front squat or goblet squat. And so when people detract from an FMS, I think it's usually because it's someone who grew past needing the kit, right? And they're like, well, you don't need it. Well, but it's really helpful for someone who's young, who probably doesn't have a lot of experience and hasn't seen a lot of squats and hasn't seen a lot of push-ups and hasn't seen a lot of lunges, to help them kind of make a decision. Mm. And if we get away from the idea that you're going to predict an injury, yes, you're not going to predict an injury, but you might run into a problem if you have someone do a rear foot elevated split squat and they can't even do a bodyweight split squat, right? Like you might run into an issue there. And so you go back to that stoplight idea where you say, like, okay, someone comes in and does a squat, a bodyweight squat, and their heels come up and their knees collapse and their chest falls forward, so it looks like a good morning. That's probably not someone you're going to put a bar on or start loading, right? You might start with, let's teach you how to do a squat press up. That's as simple as what a movement appraisal could be. But a lot of these commercialized systems help someone have standardization and make better decisions early on. And I think the question you had specifically was programming, right? Like, where do I start, right? So you should have a regressive system, right? How many times have you and I said that? To make better decisions and be adaptable. So if someone comes in and their heels come up and you cue them, and their chest goes down and you cue them and they don't get better, okay, let's put you on a heel lift. Let's have you do a press out with a ball. Let's see if that looks a little more efficient, so you can get the load into the joints and to the muscles that you want, as opposed to places that you might not want on that exercise. So I think that we are so polarized sometimes when we talk about these commercial models for movement assessment, but in reality, you need somewhere to start to help you make decisions. And I think they're very helpful in that, and in decision-making process.
If I told you, right, the FMS, if it only takes you 8 to 10 minutes, when you get really good at it, you can do it in less than 8 minutes. If you do an 8-minute FMS, you've already set yourself up and your client for much more success in that first session and all the following sessions, as opposed to if I did no screen at all, it might take me 4 to 5 sessions to tease all that stuff out. So eventually all that stuff comes out in the wash, right? But if I could just take 8 minutes and get the laundry done then, as opposed to having to do it over 5 sessions, why wouldn't you just take the 8 minutes, right?
Exactly.
You just save yourself so much time. It is also, if nothing else, if you want to argue and say it doesn't do what it says it does, fine. It's the best sales tool that you have, because you can watch somebody move and you can say, oh, we need to work on this. And based off of what you just presented, this is what might be hurting your shoulder, or this is something, maybe we want to stay away from squats right now because we're going to work on this over here. Like, you can have a better discussion, and now you've really got your client's interest. And so, like, I've used it as a great selling tool as well. And again, it makes my programming better. It helps the individual. It saves us a bunch of time. Like, there's just so many benefits that go with having some sort of screen or some sort of process that you do from the start. And I was going to mention before you go that it could be as simple as having the same workout you take everybody through the first day. So if I do a workout with a push-up, a goblet squat, a split squat, a single leg deadlift, a front plank, a TRX row, and maybe a 1 minute bike ride or a 3 minute bike ride or something, like, I can get a lot of information from that one workout, and I can scale it, right? So we talked progressions, regressions, and progressions, or challenges and options. Push-ups, I can make those easier or harder based off of the individual in front of me. So somebody comes in and we say, hey, let's start with the bench. Let's do some bench push-ups. And they do 10 easy bench push-ups. All right, let's move our way down a little bit. Let's get closer to the ground. All right, and then we get to the ground, they only do 2. Okay, well, I've got a pretty good starting point. But somebody comes in and they do 3 on the bench and they collapse. Like, okay, we need to go up. Like, you could use the same workout and regress and progress that during. Same thing with goblet squat. You have somebody come in and they tell you they have knee pain. Like, okay, we're going to regress the squat right away. We don't need to load it with weights.
Yeah. And I mean, the introductory workout is a thing we talk to all of our coaches about, right? We talk about how to do a movement screen, how to look at someone's joints if they can get into shoulder flexion, if they can get into hip flexion, hip external rotation. Like, we teach our coaches how to do that. But then the introductory workout, I say, like, look at all the basic things we want people to be good at and take them through body weight or lightly loaded versions, and let's see how it looks and how they feel. And that can give you a wealth of information about where to start. Also, it can set the client up to be successful from the very beginning. I always say in the first session, I want them to feel like they're successful. I don't want to give them things where they fail and struggle, especially for a new client. It's going to be very discouraging for them if you put a bar on them and they get stapled in a bench or a split or a squat. That's not a great way to start, especially for someone who doesn't have a lot of training experience. I want them to go in and be like, I feel good. I did a good job. This place is the right place for me. I made a good decision. And they get that little hit of dopamine that says, like, I belong here, right? And so that's really, really important. And it kind of is interesting because the people who kind of always take away or detract from some sort of movement screening are always the one that are say, like, you're going to cause kinesiophobia. You're going to make them scared to exercise if you tell them that, you know, their shoulder doesn't move well. Like, when I screen someone, I don't say, hey, your shoulder sucks. Like, it's how you communicate, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'll just take an appraisal, take notes. And again, if someone comes in and says, oh, my shoulder hurts, I've been working out at home, and then you get their movements, you look at their shoulder and they're like this, and they're like this, and you're like, I mean, that's the low-hanging fruit. Like, you have a joint that doesn't move through a full range of motion well, and you're repeatedly loading it into what you're trying to get into a full range of motion, they're probably not going to feel great. And so I think sometimes when people detract from movement screening, they have this idea that you're like, you do an FMS and then you go, look at that shitty push-up. And that's not how you communicate with people, right? If you have any communication skills, you just say, hey, I want to see what a push-up looks like. And I want to see what this lunge or split squat looks like. And I want to see what this squat looks like. And then you make a decision, right? And so that is really an application how it's done. Although sometimes you might take one of these commercial models and courses. It's this very formal process that you go through. There's much more listening to the client and much more communication with the client that happens when you actually screen them. And then you probably make them feel better, right? You set them up in a position to be successful when they come in, as opposed to throwing a bar on their back and be like, nah, their first day, we just put a bar on their back and have a back squat and go from there. And then a certain percentage of those people fail. I don't want failure early on in their training session ever. I want success because it's going to probably build a foundation for them to be successful going forward.
Two things. Number one, you don't have to do an FMS. There's no rules. There's no rule that says you have to, right? So I skip them sometimes. If I have a conversation with an individual and they have a lot of anxiety about coming to the gym, and I spend most of my time just getting them comfortable and keeping it really, really simple. Again, I go through my first workout, which is almost always TRX row, some sort of squat, some sort of push-up, some sort of single leg exercise, and then some sort of core drill, just to keep it really simple. I skip the FMS sometimes and save it for the second or third workout after they're more comfortable. Okay, so you don't have to do a screen to start, especially if you've had that conversation or you're meeting this person for the first time and you talk to them for 10 minutes and you realize, okay, screen is not the best place to start today. So you are allowed to skip it. Okay, we're not saying you have to do one, at least in the first session. Two, if they do something that might be discouraging, or they try the push-up and they can't do a single push-up. Okay, if you were to communicate with them in the way you shared, yeah, that's a problem. Like you're not a good coach. That's just straight up.
Or if you say like, oh, you better not do that, you're going to hurt yourself.
Or that's the worst push-up I've ever seen, right? Like
you say like, hey, maybe we try it this way.
Okay, so that's my point. Is you give them a plan. That's what they're coming to you for. Like they're coming for a plan. If you give them a plan or you give them another option, you've actually created a positive experience on something that could have been negative. So yes, it could have been negative if you made it negative. But because I watched you do that push-up and say, oh, that's totally fine. So we're just going to come over here and start our push-ups here. That's it. I've turned it into a positive, and I've communicated to you that you're in good hands. I'm going to make sure that we don't do anything that could leave you injured or hurt. And this is what will distinguish you from programs or systems where it's like, hey, oh, it's your first day, Kevin. Welcome. Well, this is what we're doing today. Get to it. Good luck. I'll see you on the other side. Oh, you can't barbell snatch with 115? Too bad. You got to do it anyways, or try. And if you can't do it, you'll be able to do it in a few months, right? Like that's the bigger problem. And that's still how a lot of these systems and companies operate. Okay, I'm all for exercise. That's totally, I want people in there. I just want a little more instruction, or I want an introductory workout that you got to check some boxes before you do said program on the TV or the whiteboard, right? That's all I'm advocating for here. And also maybe some options, right? So if you can't do this, well, then let's do this over here. The individual knows what they should and shouldn't do. Also, that's the whole point of having a coach, is for the coach to instruct and to help them make better decisions. So if Mary looks up and sees it says lat pull downs or chin ups, she knows she's going to go do lat pull downs. Like if she can't do a chin up, she knows she's not going to do chin ups that day. But if you just write chin ups and you leave no other options and you have no instruction or coaching, she's going to go try to do chin ups and she's going to throw herself up there. She might get injured, or she's going to be unsuccessful. Whereas if you had just provided an option, or you had done a screen, or you had done that first workout with them, you could have made a much better decision, made them more comfortable, and instructed them on, say, hey, when we have chin-ups tomorrow in the workout, I want you to do this over here instead. So all we're advocating for is a little more triage, and I don't want to call it hand-holding, because it's not what, it's just better decision. It's coaching. It's coaching. It's taking your role seriously, writing up something on a TV or a whiteboard and just coming up with it on a spreadsheet with no plan, right? There's a difference between exercise and working out and then training. Training has a purpose. Training is a plan. Training is set in phases or weeks. A workout is just something you do for 45 minutes, right? And that's all well and good. But if, again, I'm going to say it again, and people are going to get real sick of me saying this, we are playing the long game. This is the 4th podcast I've said this now. We are playing the long game. We never, ever play the short game. You will not be successful in the short game. I'm telling you right now. You can be successful for a few weeks, but if you want to do this for a long time, you want to help a lot of people, you want people to get better, you got to look at it as training and creating a plan, not just creating a workout or doing an exercise. So we got to play the long game here. I'm going to get off my soapbox now. Sorry.
That was the sound clip, I think, for the episode.
I got very pumped up there. I get on my tangents. I apologize.
I like it. Well, we're up against it here for time, so we're going to go to our weekly book recommendation segment. Do you have a book you can start with? Because I'm going to go off screen and grab mine that I see right across from me.
A book that I could start with? I didn't even think about this. I'm going to go with an autobiography here. Okay,
I'm gonna go grab mine while you talk.
All right. I'm going to go with an autobiography here. Total Recall is Arnold Schwarzenegger's story. And the fact that he went from living in Austria to becoming Mr. Universe, to becoming the #1 actor in the world, to becoming a real estate mogul, and then becoming a governor, almost makes him a Renaissance man. And the story is fascinating to be able to dominate the physical world, the entertainment world, the business world, and then the political world. It's mind-boggling to me that someone was able to do that. And whether you like him or not, or yes, he's done some shady things and he might not be the best human in the world, but the story of how the drive it takes, what he had to do to get to be able to just become an actor without knowing really any English at all when he moved here is fascinating to me, that he could dominate 4 different kind of genres it's hard to dominate one thing in your entire life, and he did it with 4, which is just it's a great The Governor. It's a great story. I listened to it. I really enjoyed it. So Total Recall by Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's not a fitness book, but it's a great listen if you want something that's fun and interesting.
Well, I'm going to give you 2 books by the same person.
Okay.
So some people listening might know, like, I'm a Tom Michaud super fan. I have like a man crush on Michaud. And so he has 2 books that have been really helpful for me. The first one, obviously much thicker, Human Locomotion. And he works with runners primarily, almost entirely. And so this is Human Locomotion, the conservative management of gait-related disorders. So he talks all about gait, managing running-related injuries, assessing running-related injuries. And he does all these illustrations himself, which is unbelievable. Like, there's some great illustrations in here. And then he has a smaller version called Injury Free Running. This is the 2nd edition. And this is probably a little more practical, just as far as like it takes away some of the theoretical discussion or some of the more detailed breakdown. It kind of just goes into application, maybe a little bit better for the lay person or recreational runner to read. So Human Locomotion and Injury Free Running, both really valuable resources, things I call back to very frequently to reference on my day-to-day.
He's got a very fascinating presentation or staff meeting that he did at MBSC on MBSC TV. If anyone wants to watch,
it was really good.
If anyone's part of MBSC TV, one of my favorite staff meetings was when Tom Michaud came and he used his like little pressure sensor thing. He had his toe.
He measures foot strength. Yeah.
Is it big toe strength or foot strength?
Yeah. And so I real quick before we wrap it up is like he there's a lot of research about foot strength specifically and running related injuries. And he was kind of advocating for some of these like isolation-based exercises, which can be really valuable in some instances. But what we found is like we do a lot of single leg work and a lot of stuff where people don't have shoes on, like in the weight room or in the warm-up. And so when he came and tested our staff, even though we hadn't done any of the like isolation-based exercises that he was kind of advocating for, he said we had the strongest feet out of anybody he'd ever tested. Because I mean, he really just works with a running population. But I think it goes to show, like, if you're doing things on one foot, obviously a greater demand for stability at the foot. And if you're doing things sometimes without a shoe on, I think you can kind of build some of those qualities. So it was really interesting when he came. So I would check out that in-service for sure.
And what do we got coming up?
Same stuff as
Winter
last
seminar.
week. MBSC Winter Seminar just got approved for 1.4 NSCA CEUs. So if you're looking for your CEUs, it's approved for both the virtual live stream as well as the in-person. So if you got to get those CEUs, we're an option for you. So go to mbscwinterseminar.com and you can sign up today.
Beautiful. I'm in Chicago, Niles, Illinois this next week. So next Sunday, I'll be teaching there. And then I'm in Los Altos. I said Los Gatos last time, I realized, but it's Los Altos. They're very close to each other. So same area. We're okay there. The following week on the 27th. So that's what I've got coming up. Awesome. And then I got my yes day. So we're going to be doing that tomorrow. I'm about to go hit the trampoline park.
All right. Go Bengals.
Go Bengals. Go Joe Burr.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody. Talk to you next week.
Take care, everyone. Thanks, Kev.